clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Devin Allen, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Sorry about that. Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Charlie Pryor from the Calvary Cathedral International in Fort Worth. Thank you so much for coming out today. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Thank you, Judge, Commissioners. Pastor Bob Nichols, founder and pastor of Calvary Cathedral for the last 55 years, sends his greetings. Wants you to know how much he appreciates your service and your time. He honors you, respects you, and prays for you often. And he wanted me to share that with you. And I want to say thank you for honoring God as you always open your court in prayer. The Bible says, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this court. We thank you for these that serve our county so well. Father, I just pray your supernatural blessings on this court and those that serve today. I thank you for supernatural wisdom. I thank you for giving our judge and commissioners understanding of their times. I thank you that the perfect will of God will be done in this courtroom today. And I thank you for it, oh God, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the flag. Allegiance to Jesus, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
He's going muted on muted.
Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Honor Members of the Court. Talking about the agenda, if we can go to public health section, that'll be item 8E4. We have a new court communication that is in your red folder as it relates to the addendum to the Essence software license. Also, several other things with the agenda. Once again, we're going to go somewhat out of order in that we're going to ask Dr. Tanasia to come forward at the beginning and make his presentation. We did have on the agenda that the hospital district was going to give their monthly update today. I talked to Mr. Earlier today, and he is not going to be able to make it. I believe that he is communicating individually with the court members also to keep you all updated on a weekly basis. And so we are not going to have that update today. Also, as we get into the agenda itself, we have make sure that all of your red folders contain documentation. We had a slight misstep last week, and I believe that we've covered everything that we changed in the agenda or added to the documentation, and it's in your red folder. If we come across something where we haven't, let us know, and we want to make sure that you all get all of that information. That type of stuff is like, for example, Dr. Tanasia's presentation. So in order to give you all the best updated version that we have with the data, we get that in the mornings, on Tuesday mornings. So you'll see that in your red folder. Also, you're going to see some other things in your red folder that when we get to item number 2, under the administrator section, we're going to be talking a little bit about that. One of the things we're going to ask for several action items when it comes to item number 2. One is going to be some discussion with the county auditor as it relates to the small business stimulus program. We want to make sure we lock down the processes that we're going to use so we can move forward with that. Second thing is that we're going to talk with you. You might remember that in the past you all have authorized the county administrator's office to hire 7 management analysts as it relates to COVID, and we've been distributing those individuals out. The auditor has 3 positions there. She may need some more. We've put some of those positions in community development to help for the rental program. We're going to ask you to authorize us to hire an additional 5. We bring those on only as needed, but we would like to have the flexibility, and if you'll give me that authority, we're going to ask that when we get to item number 2. And then, and I believe that'll cover number 2. Besides that, we will have one item that we need to go into close today. And once we cover that, close should be fairly short. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of July 7th.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We have the kickoff of our, who's going to, come on forward, y'all, who's going to handle this?
Julie Butler is going to be talking with us about that.
Julie, come on down.
All right, here I come.
You win the prize.
Thank you very much for having us and for kicking off Tarrant County's food drive here. This is the first time since COVID that we have had a food drive. Because of the risk of virus and spread and contamination, we have not accepted food at the food bank from any other than grocery partners and manufacturers. So to me and to my team, this is an important food drive, and we're excited that you're doing it for us. The most important need that we have right now are ready-to-eat and pop-top items for our children that we're serving because they're not in school, and for our seniors who are homebound and cannot get out to get their own meals. So it comes at a great time. I wanted to thank you, Judge Whitley, for the support you provided with the 136th Air National Guard out of Carswell. We had 3 units, 90 guardsmen and women who have been supporting us since early April. They are starting to depart, and we're sad to see that because they've been extremely instrumental in supporting our emergency food drives that we've been doing at the local schools throughout the ISD. We've had 2 large events at Globe Life Center in Arlington, a large event at Dickey's Arena, and we will have a final large event at the Birdville ISD later this week. So I just want to thank you for recognizing them, for getting them to us, and for the proclamation that we presented to them last Thursday evening. So thank you very much for that. And just to give you some sense, I wanted to give you some statistics. We have seen a 65% increase in food distribution for this quarter versus the same quarter, same period last year. 65% more people who are needing food from the Tarrant Area Food Bank, of which 40% are new to the food bank. They have never had to ask for our services before. Brand new to the experience, unfortunately. We are doing 200 mobile pantries and special events every month, serving 60,000 households in Tarrant County, along with the 12 counties that are in our service area to the west and to the south. And this month, for the first time, we are able to serve senior share programs at 8 city senior centers across the Tarrant County, which we used to do pre-COVID, and they're just now opening back up so that we can serve those seniors. So a lot going on at the Tarrant Area Food Bank. The food drive is very, very important to us. And again, we appreciate and thank you for the support from the Air National Guard.
No, don't leave yet.
Okay.
I can see, as we all do, you're struggling with the mask. The glass is fogging up. This is an extremely important event. As you said, this is the first time y'all have gone out. You are the first person who has actually come up here for other than county business since we started this. And I think our folks have always got out and supported the food bank. Y'all have done a tremendous job. You have worked closely with Meals on Wheels. You've worked closely with Catholic Charities. You've worked closely with our seniors, 60 and better. And I cannot tell you how much we appreciate that. As you said, you are experiencing folks who've never had to ask for food before. And I just want to tell you, and I want to tell everyone else, that what many of y'all may not see behind the scenes is the tireless work of a number of agencies who are out feeding older adults, who are feeding kids, who are feeding folks who never thought that they would be asking for that need. We've got folks working for the homeless. We've got folks working in child care. We've got folks working throughout this county doing things which they never thought they would have to do. And I cannot tell you how gratifying it is to see what everybody is doing and how everybody is working together. What we have a tendency to do is to hear those people who are complaining about this or complaining about that. And what we don't hear sometimes is the great stories of the folks whose lives you are impacting and whose lives you are affecting and saving, and helping them get through a time which they never thought. They never thought that they would be experiencing in their lifetimes. So I am excited about the beginning of this food drive. I am hopeful that as a county we will come together like we always do and hopefully put together record numbers as far as the amount that we raise and that we give for the food bank, because certainly now is a time when that needs to occur. So thank you very much for being here. I think the brown bag is next week.
It's still July 31st.
Then it's whenever July. That would be that'd be several weeks. 2 weeks.
Yep.
Plus some. Anyway, please, everybody, let's get into this and let's get as much food as we can, because there is definitely a big need out there. Thank you so much for being the first one that has had that's come back to us now, and to hopefully, it's a new normal. We all hate these masks. We all try to figure out how to keep them from fogging up the glasses.
Yeah.
But I think that this and washing the hands and doing those kind of things, social distancing, will be what will hopefully flatten the curve and begin to get us back to as close to normal as we can hope to get back to. So,
well, thank you, Judge Whitley. It's an honor and a pleasure, and good luck with the food drive. We need it, so thank you for your support.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to add, Julie, thanks for being here, for all the work that you are doing, and hey, Charles Boswell. But I did just want to read for the listening audience, and I think we've talked about this many times in how we have put together our programs and things like that, but every day people are having to make the difficult decisions of paying their bills, buying their prescriptions, getting gas, or getting food. And it says here on this little card you all provided, and I'd love to get a digital copy so we can help to spread the word about the drive. Most needed items are ready-to-eat foods, soups, mac and cheese, cereal, fruit cups, and juice boxes. So you certainly have our commitment that will help to get the word out about the needs there.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie. And Charles.
Court members, you now have before you our consent agenda.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius?
Thank you, Your Honor. I know that we have several audience participations, but I would suggest that we first do Dr. Tenaza's presentation, then hear from the audience, and then move forward with the action items.
Yeah, I think that I think that's a good way to approach it. Maybe after item 3, or maybe even probably after item 2. Would you say?
We can do that. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Dr. Tenaza. Also known as Star 6.
I will wear that every day. Thank you, and good morning, Your Honor, members of the court. We're going to quickly go over our briefing items again. Just to get you situational awareness, global cases continue to rise. No surprise there. We're at 13.1 million cases and 572,000 deaths. Texas. Today is going to be a little bit more detail about Texas because we are the story right now. 264,000 cases, and that is a 32% increase just from last week. And 3,235 deaths, that's about 22% increase. And 2.8 million tests conducted, that's about 23% increase. So that's kind of the story. Tarrant County, we got 19,000 and some change in cases. We're going to be declaring about 540 more cases this morning. 272 deaths, knock on wood. This is the second or third day in a row where we have 0 deaths, so that's good news. 9,717 recovered, that's 296 new recoveries. Hospitalized are at 645. And I know there's been discussion about how many of these outbreaks are coming from facility clusters. We're seeing a decline in facility-related outbreaks. That's about 18% of the total number at this point. So it's generally out in the community. And, you know, that data takes a while to catch up as we do investigations. So some of that is tied to that as well. 6% is senior living, 5% is corrections, 7% is others. And our outbreak at the FMC Carswell, as expected, is growing a little bit. We got about 143 total cases. That includes 4 staff members. I believe this morning testing did occur, or at least it was scheduled at 4:30 this morning. It did occur, and I think the list we had was about 160 staff. Now, that's not entire staff. I mean, I think they have close to 440 some staff. I will wait for when I get back to the office see how many actually came, because we expect some people to just show up. But 160 or so signed up. So that's a good start there, and we're working with them on trying to finish that off. They sent most of their inmate testing to a commercial lab, so it's probably going to be a little bit before we get all the results back.
So before you move off that slide, would you talk a little bit about the total testing in Tarrant County?
Yes, sir. So total testing in Tarrant County is about 140,000 and some change. We're now back to number 3 in the state. But, you know, as you can see, we need more. Demand is there, certainly. So we're trying to do our best to kind of onboard some vendors. You know, we started working with TDEM. They brought some vendors on. We've been talking to them and some other vendors. Hopefully we'll have a solution for more testing locations here shortly to present to you all.
So that's about a 13%?
Yes, sir.
So the reason I asked you to speak to that, because when we get to item number 2 in our section, we're going to talk a little bit more about testing.
Yes, sir. So again, just to kind of put the numbers on a graph, as you can see, U.S. has been climbing very steadily and at a very fast pace. So that's what an epi curve looks like from a national perspective. Here's just another way. The reason I like this is they have a 7-day moving average, just like we do, and it sort of smooths out. Here's what's happening when you look at all the states that are having a lot of increases. Texas, obviously, we're spiking. And what I worry about when I look at this picture is look at Florida and look at Arizona. What we want to avoid as a state is those type of spikes. And that, you know, gives me worry as your health director, because we're sort of heading that way as a state. And here's, you know, again, just a little bit detailed graph to show that, you know, how it's kind of going on a daily basis. Here's the number of deaths spiking in Texas. I know Tarrant County, we've been fortunate, but not across the state of Texas. I mean, the week after 4th of July has been pretty deadly from COVID for Texas. Here's the positivity rate for the state. You know, I know we've been talking that we were declining all the way through May. The low was almost 5% positivity rate, but then it turned around, and now we're at almost 17% positivity rate as a state. That's huge.
Describe positivity rate.
So on any given day, let's say there's 100 tests conducted. How many come back positive out of those 100? So it's
as a
percentage of that per 100. Yes, sir. And so it's a daily count on, as results come back, what are the total results that are back, how many of those that are positive, and as you can see, we're steadily climbing. Now, I don't get hung up on the individual numbers. I look at the trend, and the trend is up. And when you look at the total, 17%, that means almost 1 in every 5 that are being tested across the entire state are coming back positive. Now that's bad news for Texas. Looking at Tarrant County information, same thing. Yes, sir.
I'm going back to your U.S. situational awareness.
Yes, sir.
Where are the rest of the states?
So I did not take the snapshot of all of them. These are states that are seeing increases in cases. And this updates every day. It's New York Times, they do these graphs. And other states are either stable or declining. And we change buckets all the time. Some weeks I've presented this and we only had a handful, I think 13 or 14 states here that were increasing. But now, as you can see, many, many states are experiencing an increase.
Okay.
Tarrant County data, hospitalizations continue to climb. We've had a couple of days where it looks like it might have stabilized, but overall the trend has been up. If you look at the chart on the right, about 12% of our total bed capacity is occupied by COVID. So the number, again, is steadily climbing. And again, I say this all the time, the overall trend is what is worrisome. The individual numbers, those can change on any given day. It's just that we need to break that trend. Case trend, again, climbing, and this is based on specimen collection date on when people actually go seek health care, because that's the closest we can get in a hurry to when they were ill. And as you can see, right around end of June, there was a big spike. Week of 4th of July, there was another pretty big week, and then, of course, data is not fully in yet, so we kind of wait on that. And on the right is our lab positivity rate. And again, as a disclaimer, this is not 100% everything. We're relying on a national system that has, on any given day, 60 to 65% of the data reported. But as you can see, we're kind of plateauing at about 19 to 20% of positivity rate in Tarrant County. Again, that's very high, but the good news is that it's plateaued for the last few days. We're not spiking higher than that. So hopefully, we're starting to see, at least on a positivity rate, some changes there and maybe some good news to follow. COVID-like illness, so that's the only chart that I like right now, because it's actually starting to show, after a big spike around 4th of July, it's starting to show a little bit of a downturn. And the reason I correlate that is we got a masking order that went in just before 4th of July. And then the governor came out and sort of put a kibosh on large gatherings, rolled back some of the bars and changes with the restaurants and things like that. So hopefully that's why we're seeing that a little bit of a downturn. Again, that could be me just being overly optimistic, but that's our most sensitive indicator. I'm liking what I'm seeing there, that we're starting to break that trend. And this last slide, it's more of an indicator on when we receive cases, but I want to show that to you as the volume workload. It's increasing for public health across the state, but this is Tarrant County picture. We're receiving, like last week, close to 4,000, 3,700 cases came in. Now, if you start looking in between the numbers, there's another correlation. There's a little bit of a slowdown from end of June. Almost every week, there was about a 45% average increase. This last week, there was only about a 13% increase in cases. So again, I'm trying to be optimistic, read between the lines there. But hopefully, all of the changes that we made with the masking and the rollback of bars closing and all these other things, cutting down on large gatherings, hopefully that's what is driving that. I think more is needed to balance that out. But so far, we'll take any good news we can get. So that's all I have, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
That last slide.
Yes, sir.
This slide here, I want you to focus on it somewhat, because when we get to the public health part of the agenda, there's going to be an ask for some additional personnel for public health, and it's driven to a certain extent by what that slide is telling us. It's the workload issues.
Yes.
So we'll talk about that when we get to that particular section of the agenda.
Yeah, Vinny, if you could just update us on the turnaround time for testing results, and I know that's complex with a lot of kind of moving parts, but there are two things that I've been hearing the most from my constituents about is turnaround time for the test, the availability of being able to schedule a test through our system right now, and then the second one is schools and what, if anything, that the county is doing. Obviously, we know that TEA is the decision maker on that, but folks still want to know what we're doing to work with schools and what can we do.
Okay. So coming to the schools first, because I know that's been sort of hot topic of discussion.
Yeah.
CDC guidance is very clear and common sense. The most low risk scenario is online only schooling, because when you put people together, the risk starts to escalate, right? I mean, the more congregated they get, the density is what causes the issue. If we're sitting together and not able to social distance, there's going to be an issue. So the lowest risk scenario is online schooling, but there's other issues at play, right? I mean, school funding's at play. You know, is online the best way to teach the students? What are parents going to do if kids are staying home? So a lot of that is really, you know, I don't envy our school superintendents trying to decide on what the right path is, but you're right. That direction is coming from TEA, but from a health standpoint, online only is the best option because that's the lowest risk scenario. So going back to the testing, testing turnaround time, I know it fluctuates a little every week. Average out of our 19,000 cases, from the time they take a test to when we receive the result at Public Health is about 5.7 days. So call it 6 days. I mean, that's kind of where we are. And average time from somebody that gets sick to when we at Public Health receive the results is about 7.5 days, so let's call it 8 days. So it's between 6 and 8 days. If you ask me, that's way too long, because then it puts a lot of pressure on us to make sure that that contact tracing is done. And, you know, it takes a while to get all of that done. So it's just not enough time. So what we need is a speed up on those results. Now, large labs, in their defense, I mean, they're getting a lot of testing coming their way. So that's part of the reason for the delay. But yeah, to me, that's their issue to solve. I can't solve it for them. We need the results as soon as we can get them. Ideal time frame for the results to be really valuable is within 48 hours of testing, because that's when we can have some time to get to the people, give them the instructions, and get all of the situation taken care of.
And then will you give us an update on the status of being able to schedule through our system right
Yes.
now?
Thank you for reminding that. So right now, for this week, there are a couple of hundred appointments on Thursday, Friday, and about 100 something on Saturday booked out in Arlington only. This is a transition week. So currently we're working with TDEM, and they're transitioning from a vendor called Curative to a vendor called Hanu. So this is a transition week. They're supposed to start at some point this week with this new vendor. There's some confusion about whether these new vendors can take appointments from our system. What I'm hearing from TDEM is they'd like to start with just the vendor portal. You know, y'all might have heard over the last week or two, we had registrations here. People went on site, had to re-register. That was because, again, vendors are coming in, they have their own registration portals. So for now, we're not taking any appointments, and we're waiting for TDEM to provide us with their vendor portal. And we'll figure out a way to, you know, announce that to the public on where to go to get registrations. It's just all moving very fast.
Sure.
And right now we don't have any available on the website.
And I know, I guess we're supposed to be talking more about testing
Yes.
later in the agenda. Okay.
Yes, but there will be appointments and testing happening in Tarrant County. You know, estimates range. TDEM's plan is to have sort of an open drive-up type of a location. And in the past, when they've done that, it has been as high as 700, 750 people that have gotten tested. I don't know what their capacity is with the new vendor, but I'm expecting anywhere between 300 to 600 per day starting Thursday. That's what we've been talking about. It remains to be seen how much they can actually operationalize, because it's a new vendor, so everything's going to change. The setup's going to change.
Vinny, one of the things I think I'm going to try to do is set up a meeting with you and GK, myself,
Yes.
and Josh,
Yes, sir.
and see if we can't really make sure that we're all on the same page and that we've worked through these things. So I've asked Chandler to try to set that meeting up sometime today or tomorrow.
That'd be great. Any help we can get, we'll take. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. So Judge, did you say you wanted to go through the first couple of items and then go to the audience participation?
Yes.
Okay, all right, very good. Okay, so let's start. And if we can go to item number 1, under the Administrator section. This, once again, is discussions of local disasters and also items dealing with the governor's orders. We reported fairly extensively last week about the governor's order GA-29, and we talked about the masking requirements as it relates to that, and that was in conjunction with the county judge's order on masking. I think that you've seen a lot of activity. I've noticed that in our buildings that everyone is masked up. We're providing those masks at the entry points of the buildings with signage and in 3 different languages. So we believe that that is going well. Also, you might remember also, I think that the governor issued another executive order after this, which in effect moved the businesses. I think they're starting to close. Some of the businesses are backing off of the percentage of occupancy, and we would not be surprised if there would be a new order dealing with that particular issue in the near future. We're not fully aware of it yet, but I think you can tell by what's happening at the state level that everyone's trying to bend the curve. And so that's what we're seeing with the executive orders. That is all I have on this particular item.
Okay.
Unless there's a discussion, we'll move to item number 2, which is a fairly lengthy discussion.
Why don't we, at this point in time, let me call on the audience participation.
Sure.
And we have, at this point in time, 3 that have indicated they're wishing to speak. And so what we're going to do is, I know 2 of them are in the 504C because they cannot, they had health issues that, from a standpoint of wearing the masks. And so what I'm going to do is I will call folks up. You'll have 3 minutes in which to make any comments that you wish to make. The first person is going to be Kevin Moore, followed by Janet Jackson, followed by Jody. So Kevin, I believe Kevin Moore, if you would come forward. And again, Mr. Manius, if you or someone could take care of the 3 minutes. Please state your name, and then you have 3 minutes to make any comments you wish to make.
Okay, my name is Kevin Moore, and I'm an owner of a water treatment business in Burleson, Texas, but I live in Tarrant County. And we've been looking at a lot of charts this morning that talk about cases, testing. But the number of deaths actually is 1/3 the number of deaths of the flu last year. So we're at, I believe he said 3,200 deaths, and the flu last year was over 10,000. The year before, flus were over 11,000. So we can test. I don't really understand the point of testing unless you're in a place where they require it, because if I'm sick today, I'm sick, and if I'm not, tomorrow I may be. So if I find out I have that, and I don't have symptoms, and I don't feel bad, then I'm not quite sure what the benefit of that is. And I look at all this stuff that's going on, and I look at the economic impact, and earlier you talked about how, we have all these people now in need of things that they weren't in need of before, and this is a result of draconian measures that are being imposed on people that are fear-based. I'm not saying there isn't sickness, not saying there's not illness, but the numbers, there are more people got killed on highways in Texas last year, and people still drive. So my concern is looking around the room, and I see how many people act like this is going to be okay for decades. We'll just wear masks, we'll wear masks. And we have flattened the curve, not the ones that are up on these signs, but the deaths. And if you look at the number of deaths that are happening, it's cases that they keep pushing. It's not deaths, because if you compare them to the flu last year, where was the epidemic? So as a result, I have great concern about what's going on in our country, because it seems like people are walking, like in 2010, the Rockefeller Foundation posted something that said, here, this is our agenda, lockstep, and everybody's going to walk the same. You can go back to 1942 and look at screw tape letters, and you can see
2 minutes
that this is exactly what was told. 1942. Go look it up, screw tape letters. You'll see the picture. And so I'm amazed at how many people are living in fear, going, you know what, I need the government to tell me what to do, take away my rights, because I'm scared of something that is a natural thing, death, right? And I'm not saying that I'm downplaying those that get sick or those that are dealing with it, but I quite honestly, and I can say this in front of God, that if I get sick, I die, my children die, I still don't think that giving up all my freedoms in this country is worth it. I'm going to die someday, and how I die is up to God. It's not up to anybody else. And having to put this thing on, knowing it doesn't even work, we can go and do the research. It doesn't stop transmission of viruses. It's a placebo. And so
3 minutes.
Social distancing, time is up. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Yes, thank you.
For coming out. Janet Jackson.
Hello, I'm Janet Jackson, and I'm here today notifying that the Tarrant County Commissioner's Office about your oath to our Constitution. First, our unalienable rights granted to us by our Creator, and you took an oath to our Creator when you took an oath to the Constitution to uphold those rights under the Constitution. The declaration of this emergency that has been issued by the Texas Department of Health and Governor Abbott has had a lack of proving that any virus exists. No Department of Health has isolated or even proven that a virus or bacteria even exists according to scientific protocol of Koch's postulate. Thus, the coronavirus is being used as a cover for 5G rollout and the dangers of electromagnetic radiation. According to the definition of an epidemic, based on the Texas Department of Health website, that is, the value must be beyond the normal range for a disease or illness. According to the numbers earlier stated, there have been a little over 3,000 deaths in Texas. While last year, according to deaths for the seasonal flu, were 10,020. Even last year, with 10,020 deaths to the seasonal flu, we were not under an epidemic or a pandemic. Furthermore, the rate of recovery or the rate of death is 0.01049% for COVID. The death rate for the flu from 10/18 to 10/19 was 0.03376. In Texas, we have 29 to 29.6 million people in Texas. And in Tarrant County, we have 2,057,470.
2 minutes.
There have been 3,112 reported deaths in the state of Texas, which is about a third of the deaths compared to the flu deaths of 10,020 of the 2018-2019 flu season. In Tarrant County, we have had 272 deaths as of July 30th, 2020, per the Tarrant County Department of Health. Under the Texas Governor's Code of 418.025, a state of disaster may not continue for more than 30 days unless renewed by the governor. The legislature, by law, may terminate the state of a disaster at any time, but our governor refuses to call together our legislature, who has the authority to make the laws governing this state.
3 minutes.
Governor Abbott does not.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Jody?
Hi, my name's Jody. As you can see, once again, I'm not wearing a mask. I can't wear a mask, and I feel like we have a target on our backs if we don't. The public opinion is horrible against us, and I just want to let you know that Hospitals are also threatening mothers that are giving birth that they will take their children. This just happened at Texas Health Alliance. If the mother and father refuse to take this test or let the child have it, they were leaving the child with the hospital. So that's what's happening right now. I want to say that even the thermometer, the temperature taking, it threatens fundamental rights. I have a constitutional right to be free of law. People might think it's crazy, but they are not bonded by any medical board, and I've never consented to this. So I also revoked consent when I was here, and I've given that to your office. I want to say, first of all, that since the last meeting, I noticed this terminology of this virus, which is actually a man-made contaminant, is now called a disaster. Well, I want to know what disasters are funded by. You don't need to tell me, I already know, because my children were taken, as I told you before. They are funded by Title IV monies. Title IV-D is when they flip custody and take children from parents, law-abiding parents. Title IV-E is when CPS comes and snatches your kids. Each child from Title IV-E is worth $85,000. Each child taken from a mother for Obama's Fatherhood Initiative is worth $5,000 federal funded dollars. Those dollars go into disasters, or the Farm Bill, or SNAP. We don't need more children taken because of this man-made contaminant, okay? And I want to also say on the record that a useful place for Americans to stand is with the U.S. Supreme Court in one of its most cited decisions that anything passed as law in obvious violation of the U.S. Constitution is not law, but void. Void as a legal term means the alleged law has zero legal force that voids things and are as no things. So I hope people know they have every right to revoke consent. And if they don't know how, they can reach me, and I hope they can figure out who I am, because I know how to do this. This is completely unconstitutional. And when you take kids and you online school them, the only reason to do this is to roll out the 5G. If none of you are experiencing headaches from this, then something, I don't know what you're taking, but it's affecting everyone. They're trying to roll out 5G that's going to harm people more than any man-made contaminant ever thought of. They're everywhere. They're putting them around the schools. Now they want to make kids do this online schooling so that they have more smartphones and everything else in their home to affect them. They're going to have headaches. It causes cancer. It affects the molecules in your body, the cellular structure, everything. Our oxygen is being depleted by these towers, and now you're putting masks on us to make it even worse. And I want to ensure that you are not taking more children by sending CPS into those homes as well and taking kids. Because they will be, because kids are not even being fed at some of these homes, and they're only being fed at the schools. So what are you going to do about that?
Thank you, Jody. That's all the audience participations we have today. Mr. Mangus, if you'll continue.
Okay, so we're going to go to item number 2, and this is going to be fairly lengthy as we talk about certain things. First of all, I'm going to ask if Guidehouse, are you on the phone?
Yes, GK, we're here.
Okay, so if you'll go ahead and start your presentation.
Okay. Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. This is Katie Chesson with Guidehouse.
Katie, hold on just one second.
Okay.
Is there a way we can increase the
Turn up the volume.
Yeah.
Okay, Katie, we need you to speak louder to begin with, and then those in the back room, if you can open up the volume a little bit, we'd appreciate it. Okay, Katie, why don't you go ahead.
Can you all hear me now?
Oh,
it's much better.
Okay, perfect. So good morning, Judge and Commissioners. Again, this is Katie Chesson with Guidehouse. So just to give a quick project status update, we are on track with all of our activities. We are continuing to support the county through different eligibility questions, reviewing different documentation, and working with them now on the FEMA project worksheet that is being started by the Budget Administrator's Office. So just to highlight the key activities, Last week and then yesterday, the May and June progress reports were sent over to the administrator's office. We supported the finalization of the ILA guidance, which was sent to the municipalities on Friday. And then we have this week where we are continuing to work with public health to identify additional testing-related expenditures, and then supporting the initial CRF quarterly reporting that the auditor's office is leading. So for today's discussion, we're going to focus on the 4 pillars update, do an overview of the periodic Treasury reporting for CRF, and then our typical county spend update. Any questions on our project status? If not, we can go ahead and move to the 4 pillars slide. So there aren't too many updates on this, so I'm going to do the same thing I did last week. We're going to hit on the updates, and then we'll kind of move forward. And if you guys have any questions, we can address them at the end of this slide. So on the county programs across economic stimulus and social services, the county administrator's office will be providing updates to the court around all of the programs. And then on local partners, like I mentioned earlier, we did work with the county to support the finalization of the ILA guidance for municipalities, and that was sent out on Friday. So those are our major updates from last week. Do you guys have any questions or anything that you'd like to know the status on that's not on here?
I would like to say that the NGOs, that we launched those on July 8th, and we're receiving applications, and that application window closes on July 21st.
Is that next Tuesday?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on this slide? If not, I think we can go ahead and move to the next slide, and I will pass it over to Rachel to do the periodic Treasury reporting for CRF overview.
Thank you, Katie. So here on this slide, we're providing an overview of the reporting required by Treasury for the CRF funds. Reporting is expected to continue into next year, but may vary based on when the county expends the full amount of its CRF funds. As mentioned last week, the reporting request was received by the county in early July. The first deadline is July 17th. After this interim report, the county will provide reports to Treasury on a quarterly basis. And as we mentioned, the auditor's office has completed this week's report. Guidehouse was in discussion with the office around categorizing expenditures for the report, but they completed the report and it will be submitted by the July 17 deadline. Any questions on this slide or on the reporting?
Again, Rachel, I guess on the July report that's due the end of this week, we're talking about general categories at this point in time and not detail. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And the first detail report will actually be on September the 21st, and that will be, I guess, broken down by vendor, or is it?
They have requested documentation, but we haven't seen exactly what that report's going to look like because they haven't. They're developing an online grant reporting system that hasn't been launched yet. But we can expect that they'll be requesting more detailed information and documentation on expenditures going forward.
So basically on this July 17th report, everybody, every state, every city, every county who received a direct distribution from the CARES Act money will be required to submit this report?
A direct distribution, yes. So the cities that you have expended money to through the CRF do not need to provide a report. Those amounts are included in the county's report under their ILA distribution.
So basically it's going to be, for example, in Tarrant County will be required to do one, Fort Worth will be required to do one, and then overall the state of Texas will be required to do one.
Yeah, so any county or any city that received a direct distribution, as you mentioned, will be providing a report. So for yours, the county's report includes a line item for distributions to local governments, and that's where you would be putting all of the ILA distributions that you have made. And then that would be the same for everyone reporting. So any distributions that a direct recipient has made to a local government would fall under their own report and not be reported by that local government. Does that clarify it?
The distinguishment between encumbered and actually expended? Or is this just supposed to be the amounts that we have expended?
This time I'm not sure. Katie, are you on the line as well? Could you provide any insight on that?
So from my perspective, it would be what's actually expended, and Renee definitely hit this one on the head when she was putting together this report. It is anything that has been truly expended from the CRF fund. We are seeing this as a preliminary report. So any changes to this, as long as it's documented and anything can be explained, should be no problem at all. But yes, it should be anything that has been truly expended that is CRF at this point.
And the state will have to do one of those also.
Yes, the state will be doing one as well. So it's anybody who received a federal distribution. So you guys will do one, the state will do one, Harris County, Travis County, all of the counties that receive direct distributions from the federal government will be filling out this report.
And I'm assuming that's all public information.
So I have a question, this is probably more so for GK, but with these reports, obviously if we have a report coming up on the 17th, we wouldn't be taking action on it today, but so would it be after the report is turned in, do we receive and file it, or what's going to be our process for seeing the report and then for...
So on these type of reports, it's not uncommon for us to report this type of data to the federal government. That's an activity that the auditor's office does.
Okay.
And she does it fairly routinely.
Yeah.
And so what we will do once that document is filed, we will bring that back to court for your discussion next week.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this slide? If not, we can move on to slide 4. And so on this slide, we're providing an overview of grants that have been awarded or expected to be awarded soon to the county. About $227 million in grant funds have already or will soon be received by the county, about $15 million of which are grants that are reimbursements. And since our last report, the county has received some reimbursements, and we've indicated those in the reimbursements received column. And there's about $167,000 so far. These are reimbursements that have been received against the amount that's in the previous column, funding available for reimbursement. Any questions on this slide?
Yeah, Rachel, on at the bottom of the slide, it has a note as of July 9, and it goes on. What is that reference connected to?
That's referencing reports that we are getting from. We receive reports every week from the budget office.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes. Anything else we can clarify in this? Okay, and with that, we can move on to slide 5. And so here we are providing our same weekly overview of expenditures. Since our last report, there have been some new expenditures, and also just want to draw your attention to the social services pillar, where we've included payments made from the rental assistance program. And so we've also included updated local partners with recent ILA distributions and chambers of commerce payments. And next week we'll have an updated figure for testing noted in there. It hasn't been updated for a few weeks because we do that in conversation with public health by going through line by line items that we think might be related to testing and confirming that with them. And so we have a conversation with them coming up this week.
Where is the expenditure to the Boys and Girls Club in Mills on Wells that we approved last week?
That might not be in our information quite yet.
Okay.
But anything from the NGO distributions would ultimately show up in the social services section.
Okay, thank you.
Right, and these are lagging numbers. These are numbers that probably at least a week old.
Well, I guess that's the question. I mean, aren't these the same July 9th date? That are we talking about the same thing? And if so,
right.
Has the checks been issued, Ms. Tidwell?
Yes, for the ones you approved last week, they were issued sometime this week, though.
Oh.
Probably after these slides were prepared.
Okay.
When I say this week, I mean it's the latter part of last week.
Well, see, that's why I'm asking that. I guess I'm asking that question because these reports were supposed to have been as of July the 9th. So if the distributions occurred in your office
So what you might remember that what happens, especially as it relates to the municipalities, as it relates to the rental piece, as it relates to the NGOs, we authorize the county auditor to release those checks. And so the process that it takes, we finished court on the 7th last week, and it may take a day or two to get the checks out, but we're not waiting for this week to get those checks out because you've already authorized the auditor to release those checks. So, like I said, this is just a lagging report, and while this gives you a snapshot, we're also looking at almost a week behind, because even in the rental assistance, because we've issued more rental assistance, and that number will catch up to you, but our numbers are not that far apart.
I understand that. What I'm trying to get to is, if it says as of July the 9th, and it says from the auditor's office as of July the 9th, if the checks were issued of July the 9th, then it should be in here.
Okay, I'll tell you, we'll make sure we refine that process so this document is more up to date.
Is there any other questions on this slide we can provide some clarity on? If not, we can move over to slide 6, and Katie will wrap up.
Thanks, Rachel. So, same as last week, this slide is just summarizing the $80.6 million of expenditures and showing the potential allocation to the different funding buckets. So, starting with FEMA PA, of the $80.6 million of expenditures that the county has incurred, we have identified $14.2 million that are eligible expenditures under FEMA PA. If we move over to the CRF, the county has expended $59.8 million, and that is primarily related to the ILA distributions, but also includes the chambers distributions and then the $27,000 for rental assistance. And then we've identified an additional $4.6 million of expenditures that would be eligible under CRF that aren't eligible under FEMA PA. So those are part of the expenditures that are included in your emergency response account that would be CRF eligible and not FEMA eligible. And then moving down to the multiple grants, the auditor's office has tracked this and helped provide these numbers to us. So as of right now, they have $2 million of expenditures that are eligible for the grants other than CRF and FEMA. So that's all those grants that are shown on slide number 4. And a lot of those are reimbursement grants. So we're giving you updates on that previous slide, but that's where we're at on the multiple grants, and that leaves $15.4 million of earmarked, and we call those earmarked because they do have very specific purposes and they do have very specific expenditures that they can cover. So the auditor's office is doing a great job on tracking all of that and helping provide that information. And then all the way to the right, you'll see just the summary total, the $80.6 million expended, $133 million earmarked, and then $38.6 million remaining of the federal funding for COVID-19. Any questions?
One thing I would just point out and remind the court members, when you see the July 17th report, it is not going to be 80 million because this includes some July expenditures. And again, what was indicated earlier, that June 30th, the July 17th report will only be expenditures through June 30th. So don't try to match this back to that because we've already included some July numbers in there.
Great point. So that's the end of our presentation. If you guys have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to let me know, and I will pass it back to GK.
And I guess the only other thing that I would say, and just to kind of reiterate some conversations on the guidehouse that we went through on that deal, y'all feel very comfortable with the fact that we may categorize something now and then ultimately through the progress of it, recategorize or do things which we feel like would be a better characterization of what our expenditures are, or finding other pots maybe to pull the expenditures out of, and you don't believe that there's any problems about doing that?
No, from our perspective, as long as those changes are documented and can be explained, so if the Treasury were to come back and ask why there's a variance in a certain category, as long as you can explain the variance and document where those numbers went, you guys are going to be okay in that front. These should, for the July 17th report, these are preliminary numbers. It is a very early report, and these will be re-reported in the September 21st report, the quarterly report that goes into the portal. So any changes here, just make sure that you guys have documentation on any changes that are made and where those numbers moved, and you should be okay.
And then the other thing to remember is that Treasury is constantly changing the boundaries and changing the rules. And I know that Helen and Renee and her office, their offices are both watching that very closely. But that does mean that there may be some recategorization as we move through the process. And you just need to understand that and be aware of that. Or it may be that certain things of FEMA will do, a good part of it, and then we have to match that 25% or whatever the percentage may be, for depending upon what type of an expenditure it is.
Okay, so just before we start some of our presentations, in your red folder you should have a document that looks somewhat like this. It's green and yellow. I don't want to go over that too much. This is going to be eventually what will turn out to be your weekly update. And that document is prepared by our office, but it takes into, but the input is obviously from a multitude of different departments, including Audit, of course, community development is there, the NGO program, and so this will be more of a snapshot, and we'll be able to provide you greater detail as it relates to that as we move forward. I do want to say that with our 4 pillars, that we're pretty well on our way. We have done quite a bit of work, the court has, and staff, and we're getting to the point of where our programs that we have in place need to be stabilized. We need to get some clarity on some of them. The rental assistance is going very, very well. We're using different pots of money so that we can extend and the amount of funds available. And Ms. Ward is doing a good job with that at community development. Some estimates say that we may see a surge in rental assistance as we move into August, because we don't know how long this virus is going to be with us or what type of economic hardship that we're going to be experiencing, our citizens. The point is, though, is that these numbers change every day. And so we can give you a snapshot on a particular day, but if we come back to court, we may give you more information that increases those numbers, maybe decreases. But you track over the long run, and we're finding that the programs are starting to deliver what we said they were going to deliver. Some have delivered very well, and it's a constant improvement at the staff level as it relates to that. But that's the document that you're going to be seeing on a weekly basis. Before we go into any of the other ones, I'd like to ask Ms. Tidwell if she'll come forward to talk about the small business stimulus program. There's going to be some asks, not only with Ms. Tidwell's presentation, but some asks after that presentation to see if we can assist in getting this thing where it needs to be.
So I provided for the court yesterday a summary of where we are, some of the issues that we currently have, obstacles, along with the research and the communication that I had with the entities in Harris County in particular that were certified by Treasury. And with that, we talked about the need to consider possibly tweaking our program slightly. It was clear from speaking with both of the organizations in Harris County that the self-attestation or certification questions and making certain that our participants or people who applied were negatively impacted by COVID. Using the documents that they provided us was the critical piece, certainly. And then beyond that, the amount of eligibility could be related to 1 times payroll or some other number times payroll, and 2 times fixed costs. So I would be looking for guidance today related to what that might look like for Tarrant County if we want to use 1 times payroll and or 2 times fixed costs or some other amount times payroll. I think Denton County is the only county I'm aware of that used something different. They did use 1.75 times payroll. Harris County was using the 1 times for both their programs, and from our knowledge, the Williamson County and others had used the 1 times payroll. But obviously that's your discretion.
Will you remind me again, what did Williamson County do?
They used the 1 times payroll and or the 2 times fixed cost.
And let me say this about that, about a couple things. First off, Renee and I talked about this. I was very glad to hear last week about the certified, some of those that have been certified by the Treasury. And I think during this week, as Renee indicated, she has talked at length with the CEO of one of those companies, one that I believe that Harris County may be using. And they feel very comfortable about the 1 times payroll or the 2 times fixed expenses. And so that gives me great relief as we talk about that. Additionally, the reason that Denton County used 1.75 is they felt like that they were in effect closing businesses down for 1 month, 3 weeks. And so what they said is we want to go 1 3/4 as opposed to just 1. And if you look at our orders, I believe we closed things down on March the 24th, and I believe the governor opened things back up on May the 8th. So that's about a 6-week period of time. And so I would at least open up for discussion the possibility of us looking at 1 would be a month, 1.5 could be considered 6 weeks from that perspective. We're greatly, I hope, easing the ability to look at this because now what you ought to be looking at is, I think, and you correct me, from our discussion, if you're a sole proprietor, you're going to be looking at Schedule C. If you're a business, you're going to be looking at a 941, and if you're a partnership, you may going to be looking at a telephone call. Maybe, maybe not, but it could be much simpler to do that, and then it's just a matter of whether or not the court is of a mind to say we're going to do more than a month, and in effect make it 1.5, 1 if it's a month, and if that would be on a payroll basis. And I guess if we're going to look at fixed costs, then maybe it would be, instead of 2 times, it might be 3 times. But that's something that, that's kind of court decision.
I don't really have a strong feeling about what the multiples ought to be. We are capped at $10,000 per business. The multiples to me are a detail. We are back to multiples, which is where we started about 4 weeks ago when we started discussing this program. We still don't have any money going out the door. It's more critical to me to get money out of the door to help these businesses, because the longer we wait, the more likely it's going to be that there are not going to be the same number of businesses out there. There are some that just are not going to be able to hold on, especially for a small amount of money like $10,000. So, yeah, I could go for higher multiples, but we're still capped at 10 grand. So, the multiples are detailed as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I would support the 1 times payroll, 2 times fixed cost.
Yeah, I echo what's been said, and by just my rough numbers, adding up the 6 cities in precinct 2 and the applications, it's about 42% of those submitted. So I certainly want to move forward and do what's in the best interest of the businesses.
The only other thing I'll add that also I think needs to be addressed by the court is we were going to wait till the very end to issue any checks because we thought we would have requests that would exceed our total $30 million. With the number of people that we have to date, if each and every one of them received the full amount, we would still be within the parameters of our program. So it's my suggestion that we decide on the percentages today, and that as we move forward, that we can actually issue checks as we process them, bringing them back for the court's review, but that they can be issued on a weekly basis as opposed to waiting until we're finished looking at all the applications. And that is a change in what we originally decided.
And because the estimated time for us to review the applications, all the applications is?
It depends on how many reviewers I have.
That's the next issue.
That's the next issue.
She needs more staff.
I need more people, so, we're looking at several weeks, unfortunately, depending on the quantities of people that I can have. Even with a 50-hour work week, it still takes several weeks, and so I would like to start releasing those checks. To date, we've reviewed a small number, but once those are finalized and been reviewed by supervisors, then we could release those checks. And so that would at least start to put money in the community.
Do you have any idea, having gone through even some of the preliminary applications, are most of them asking for 10,000 or most of them asking for less than 10,000? Right now, if everybody got 10,000, we'd be talking about 29,770,000.
There are a lot of people that are eligible based on what they submitted for much more than 10,000.
Right.
So I really can't tell you. We've only looked at a small number, but I also know we've seen people that potentially could have been asking for 180,000, but of course they're going to be capped at 10. So I don't have an answer to that today, sir.
Well, the reason I ask is because if we have a lot of sole proprietors that are at 7,500 or something like that, by going to 1.5, we get them up to 10.
Right.
As opposed to if we leave them at 1, then they're going to get 1 month as opposed to 6 weeks.
But we can also look at it as 1 times payroll or 2 times fixed cost. So if we can we could approach it from, if we substantiate the $10,000, we're certainly stopping. We're not going to continue to keep looking. But in your example, if the payroll was $7,500, but they had a rental payment for their lease facility or some other cost, then their total cost that we could be reimbursing them for is, we could use both, or we can use just one or the other. So I do want to clarify it's either and or.
And that would mean that we would be getting the most money that we could out to those with a cap of 10,000.
What are the multiples that you're comfortable with?
I would, to go both salary and fixed cost, I think puts another layer of complication into the evaluation process. I think for the small businesses, the hairdressers, the barbers, the nails, the salons, those kind of things, 1 time is not going to get them to the 10. 1.5 might get them to the 10. Okay. So I would prefer to go 1.5 payroll or 3 times fixed costs. Because I think that'll get everybody to the 10, or get close to getting everybody to the 10, and will allow us to.
I will make that a motion.
I'll second it, but I'd like to see if you'll add something.
Sure, whatever.
And maybe it can't be added here. But that as those checks are written, those checks are mailed. That we don't wait till the end to mail them all.
That was what I was suggesting, yes, sir. The original approval by the court was to wait to the end because we thought we might have to prorate. But if we're only going to have up to the 10,000, then we could mail the checks as we complete them.
That's what I think we want to do.
The motion, yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to pay 1.5 times salary, monthly salary, or 3 times fixed expenses. Again, looking at it from a 6-week closure deal. And I have a motion, and that as soon as the applications are approved, and I believe it also includes a self-attestation or whatever that word is.
Then we authorize the county auditor to release the funds. That's the message.
Yes.
And the only other thing I want to make sure that when we're going to talk about the employees, but I also want you to understand that there will need to be some follow-up on some of these folks since everyone didn't get quite all of the information we originally requested. So we will have tentatively approved and then we'll have final approved. And of course, we're not going to release payment until we get whatever documentation we feel we need.
Understood.
Okay, I did second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Now, how many people you need, Renee?
I was asking for 14 above what I already have, sir. Denton County had 20. While we have equivalent of 10 FTEs that's scattered around among several of my folks, and then we currently have 3 project people to date. I'm still really looking and hoping that we could find some additional other full-time people. The part-time people that only want to work a few hours is going to be more problematic for us because everything is done online through this application.
You're talking about full-time project people?
Yes, just people who can commit at least 4 to 6 to preferably 8 hours a day to working on this so that we can have the continuity after the training and their familiarity with the system. If we need to take people that work less, then obviously we'll have to do that as well.
It is essential that we get this money out of the door. Consequently, I move that we approve 14 new full-time project positions for the auditor's office to work on this program.
Why don't we just, the only thing I would say is instead of emphasizing full-time, if she can get somebody that works 3 hours or 4 hours and she's satisfied with them,
okay,
just project employees.
14 project employees.
A second.
Can we discuss that just a second? And I'm not disagreeing with Renee at all, because we've talked about this, and internally we're working to get as many people as we can to assist to get this out. So this is not a conflict here, but I want to raise another issue that I would like for you all to add to that motion. We have identified at least 3 people that have extensive work experience and could assist doing this. And one of the things that, because we need to talk about space a little bit, and we need to talk about everything else, we're trying to get to the point that a lot of these, or some of these individuals actually work from home, and putting them on a full-time salary or putting them on a part-time salary may be somewhat difficult to track. So what we are recommending, and I believe that we're in agreement with this, is that you allow us to also contract with people on a piecemeal amount so that we will pay those individuals. They have to be absolutely qualified. They have to be approved by Renee. They have to go through the training, but that you allow us to pay $100 per application for them to review and work it all the way through. It takes more than an hour to do these applications, probably 2 to 3 hours at a time. But if we can do this piecemeal, we'll allow at least, I know, 3 people that can work from home that are extremely qualified, that can turn this stuff out quickly.
At $100 per application?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I ask that you add that to your motion.
Yeah, that's acceptable.
I do.
And that's an offset against the 14.
Whatever it takes for Renee and her team and our team to get this thing done.
That's the ultimate deal, is just get them out.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to get them out. Any further discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And
So
I
that
wanna-
means that ultimately we could end up right at 30 million when you take into account the
Actually,
cost.
when you take the 2,900, that there are some that are inside the city limits of Fort Worth that are not going to qualify. They'll have to go to the city of Fort Worth. So right now, that number is about 2,600, Judge, not 2,900.
Okay, good.
So I just want to clarify one thing, and I apologize. I see a lot of stuff. We have the signed agreements for those NGOs, the Boys and Girls Club and Meals on Wheels. I do not have any check. I have not received the check request, so those checks have not gone out. So I apologize. I was remembering seeing the agreements, I guess, and not the actual check.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Renee.
And we'll make sure that those due process, I think we were waiting for some type of document from each one of those, but we'll make sure those go out.
And just kind of as an, I appreciate the way that Renee and them are working with Guidehouse, but I think if we probably need a 2-week delay, and Guidehouse doesn't need to be trying to give it to us as of Friday, when just to reconcile everything. If that's going to be it's going to be more critical in those quarterly reports than what we get. I just, there could be enough space in there so that Renee doesn't have to scratch her head and think, okay, is that in there or not in there? And, making it as of July the 9th, I really question whether or not that was the way the report was done.
Do you understand that, Colonel? Okay, great.
Bean counter to bean counter, we understand that.
That's a word I don't want to get into. Okay, I do want to continue with this, though. So when we first started the court today, we stated that we were going to ask for 5 additional personnel. And you had previously approved 7 positions. And while they fall under my TO, what happens is that I distribute them out. Like you heard Renee say there was 3 that were in her shop. Those were 3 of our 7. And there's other departments that need COVID assistance also. And so, in fact, we just added, in conjunction with the auditor's office, we hired another person the other day that we think is going to be very good. And I've already assigned her to Renee. And our whole goal is to hit these hot points and put people in there. If we don't need the people, we're not going to hire them. But rather than coming back to court every week or every other week to ask for additional personnel, I'm requesting that you authorize our office 5 additional project people, and it's the same grade that everything else. It's a grade 72.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion saying, what exactly are these people going to be doing?
Well, for example, we've put some over in Renee's shop. We've put some over in CDBG for the rental assistance. We're talking with purchasing. They're going to need a COVID buyer because they're being totally consumed. We have the NGO program that we're going to be working, where we have all these applications. They're going to be managing those applications also. And so, believe me, there is enough work for this number. If we find that there's not enough work, then we're simply not going to hire them. But it's the entire encapsulation of the expenditures and the management of the COVID program.
And I just want to, I don't have a problem with it. I just want I want 2 or 3 things. I want to identify the number of people we got running around that we're calling COVID. I want to know where they're, to some degree, where they're located and what they're doing. And I want to keep a running total as to what we're spending on that.
That's fair.
And that we get that, whether we get it on I don't know if we need it on a weekly basis, but maybe every couple of weeks or at least once a month we
we can do that, because we have to log those expenditures and the activities so that we can qualify for funding by COVID.
And that may be, where are we logging that? Is Renee, are y'all keeping that log? Helen, are y'all keeping, where's that log being kept right now?
Well, for example, the expenditures are all coming into a particular fund that Helen and them are operating. It comes through RTO for where they're they're on paper, they're placed in my organization. And then, like, I've assigned three of them out to Renee, and we have that information. I've assigned two of them out to rental assistants, and they're working that. And the other two that, in fact, I've assigned, I have one vacancy right now, but I've assigned the one that was working in our office, and she was working on NGO. I've assigned her to go over to Renee to assist in that, because we need the flexibility. So if you ask me, are they always going to stay in one spot every week? Maybe not. But we'll track that, because we have to justify the expenditure.
He asked where the costs are going to be.
The costs are all the costs are collected initially with Helen in a.
You pulling that mask down because you can't hear?
Anyway, that's.
GK, then.
Believe me, we're not trying to build an empire.
No, I understand. I guess what the questions that I have got just center around where they are and making sure that we don't lose track of the fact that this was supposed to be a COVID person. And then also, how do we determine where or what grade we're bringing them in at?
We're asking for these all to be management analysts, because that requires a college degree, and it tracks pretty much what management analysts do, and all of these are grade 72s.
So they will come in as exempt employees, and at higher end, or 10% above higher end contract project.
I'm bringing most of them in at higher end rate. Just as it relates to, we're managing this like our normal process. There are some that, because they may have had work experience, that, for example, there's one individual in the auditor's office that retired, but she was making a much higher salary, and Renee asked that she be given a little bit more than the hiring rate. And you all have authorized me to make those decisions, and we did. And she came back, and now she's working these programs. So we're trying to use the SAG, the county SAG, on all of this. There may be some minor exceptions. I'm hoping that if we do make those minor exceptions, that we don't have to bring those back to court, because we're trying to get these people on as quickly as possible. I'll be more than happy to.
I don't have any problem with minor exceptions, I guess, but if somebody were to end up getting 25% above the.
Oh, no.
Don't forget to, bring that to us if it's a big one, but if it's minor, who cares?
I agree, and I had some other questions that the judge had. The only question I have remaining is, so with these positions, are 100% of their jobs are related to COVID? So that covers like our ability to be reimbursed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Because if they're not, well, then we may not need the full number. We can maybe use a lesser number. Our goal is not to increase employment substantially. It's to have the resources that we need to make sure the programs function properly.
And I like the piecemeal approach when we can do that, like as for example, on these applications. But I understand that's not going to be applicable. And you're going to have changing needs for those individuals.
Absolutely.
So I think that's fine.
Thank you, Jim.
Any other questions? We do have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes. Yes.
Unanimously.
Okay, one quick comment. Last week we talked about testing, and you heard some comments from Vinny already about testing. I put some, just informational, I put something in your red folder that looks like this. And it comes from the city, Office of the Mayor, City of Dallas. Okay? I don't want to read this in detail. Let me just give you a 50 word or less. Dallas County and the City of Dallas are asking the federal government, requesting that they no longer provide the testing in Dallas. And the reason that they do is because it is taking so long to get the results back. So Dallas and Dallas County, they are going to continue that. The testing is going to be run by the county hospital district. I'm not recommending we do that at all. And then they're going to try to find local labs. The only reason I bring this up is that when we talk about testing and people have concerns about not getting their testing results back quickly, please understand that it is not something that is isolated to Tarrant County. This is a national thing. And so we move from 2 to 3 days to 4 to 6 days. Nationally, it's getting up to 10 to 11 days. So I'm asking you to simply keep that in mind when you hear from people. The big number, and I think the more important number, is the number that Vinny pointed out on his slides. 140,000 people in Tarrant County have already been tested. You don't look on our site to do that. That's a site that DHS puts out. So there's a lot of private labs out there. What you all ask us to do, and Judge, you might want to chime in a little bit on this, we are currently working with 2 different labs or testing groups that we think that we can bring on that will begin a substantial amount of testing in Tarrant County. Last week we said we wanted several things. We wanted a full, Arlington is going to get a full site, and that's in Southeast, but we wanted to have testing sites in all 4 precincts and have each one of those precincts receive 6 days of testing per week. Okay? Each precinct, 6 days of testing per week. And our goal is to fill that, because whenever you have something like this, then you can begin to start moving these testing sites so they're not just in one location, but still gives us the type of testing that or capability that we need. Remember that we're trying to get groups that can do quick turnaround on labs, okay? That's increasingly difficult. That's one of the things that we have been looking at, these different things. Plus, and we may have to engage, which we will bring back to this court, engage other firms to help us maybe on billing for insurance. Because what we're asking is that the entities or the organizations we're bringing on, that they do a billing to the insurance companies, and we pay the gap, okay? On one of those, they said they do that. The other one, which seems very positive, doesn't do that. So we may have to engage some type of a billing organization. We'll come back to you and talk to you about that and get your approval on that. But we're trying to do 2 things. We're trying to get that testing out and increase our testing, and also make sure that we're very cost efficient in doing that, where we get insurance companies to pay for if a person has insurance. The individuals themselves will not pay anything. If they don't have insurance, we pick it up.
Sure. And obviously that still ensures that for this public testing that no one has to pay
That's
upfront
correct.
costs or out of pocket.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
When I appreciate the update that you shared, and I know that we have been working for many, many weeks on this permanent test site for Arlington. I want to thank everybody for their efforts thus far. And I would add that obviously my priority would be for that test site to be up and for it to have hours that accommodate the community and the responsibilities that they have. But I don't want to forget this piece about those who don't have a car. And so it's hard to do drive-through testing or to get drive-through testing if you're not able to show up in a car. So I want us to be, once we get to that point, is to be able to pivot to accommodating someone that comes up on foot or a skateboard or a Segway. I don't care, because we don't have a way for our folks to get around. And not that I would encourage someone who thought that they were sick to utilize public transportation, but in some parts of our county, even that is not an option.
We're very sensitive to that, and we consider that, and that's why we'd like to have some of these being roving sites.
Sure.
So we can bring it to the community rather than the community coming to it.
You know, I think that as we're addressing this, a couple of things I would say. One is, if we can get a contract written and get somebody here, my preference would be that we do it and we all ratify it the next Tuesday. I think as we look at any one site, there are 3 options in which that site can be used. We can have a vendor send us a bunch of tests, and some of them we can use home testing where they could actually be done at home. And that's much, I see the eyes, I don't see the mouth, but I see the concern. And saliva testing is becoming at least an option, and that was one where we could actually send a nurse or send somebody out, observe them, collect it, and be done. So that's one where now the vendor's not producing nothing but the test. Another one would be where the vendor says, we'll set up a test site, permanent or a stable test site. We furnish all of the personnel, all the security, and the vendor gives us, the tests, and we send those off when we do them by bulk. And we do the billing. Billing is an issue in any one of these three.
Sure.
And then the third one would be all, turnkey, where the vendor comes in, they find the location, they set up, they have the tents, they have the fans, they have everything, and we basically just provide people to show up there through public health, through the appointments, maybe through some walk-in and some stuff along that lines. So those are the three different variables that we'll look at with any vendor that we talk with. But I think we could very easily have a couple of vendors ready to go by hopefully the end of this week and get them in the process of setting them up. My goal, just personal, would be to have at least a different vendor in 3, if not 4 of the precincts. And then maybe have at least 2 roaming teams that basically that we have where they might go into a neighborhood that's a hot spot and do the tests, or they could be there for the centers, or they could be there for whatever it may be, but they're just kind of on the move, and they work with public health and with the cities. Right now, for all intents and purposes, I believe Arlington is about the only one, and that's because the city has got their own stuff up and running. They're doing their own thing, and they're really about the only site that are taking interviews from Vinny at this point in time. But we got to get away from that. We got to get back to having one in every place pretty quickly.
Yeah.
The other thing is the insurance, and our preference would be for the companies to bill the insurance, but if they're not and we can't find 2 or 3 that do, then I think we need, this is there are plenty of billing companies in Fort Worth.
Absolutely.
That will do this, and basically what we're saying is we're going to be the backstop for a company. They do the billing, and then we backfill with FEMA or with whatever dollars that we've got. The important thing right now is to get the tests done and to get them back here in something less than a week.
Absolutely agreed.
And so whatever it takes to do that.
So you all have last week you already authorized us to execute the contracts prior to coming to Commissioners Court. So we have that authorization. Fort Worth is running 2 sites also, but they are running it through Walgreens and Kroger. Yeah, but that's why I keep going back to that 140,000. There are numerous testing sites out there, but we need to step ours up. And the roving teams, and Your Honor, members of the court, we're also working with Tatum, because their intention is to, besides this one permanent site, their intention is to bring more groups in, more testing ability in. And so it's not a matter of who does the test, it's making sure that the tests get done.
And again, if we can get this meeting set up with Josh today or tomorrow, then that will maybe move us a long way toward, Vinny obviously has differences there we've got to find someplace, we've got a survey online, we've got to find someplace to put these people when we get the appointment set up. And we can't give them an appointment after the test site is closed down.
Okay. So, first of all, let me thank the court members for helping us on all of those particular issues.
I'd just like to say that in Precinct 1, I would like to have the flexibility to rotate the testing between at least 2 different sites.
Absolutely, yeah.
Precinct 1 is a huge geographic area, and just putting it in one place does not serve everybody.
And we're having conversations with the city of Fort Worth also to team on with at least one of these groups, and that's going to be some cost sharing, and it's going to be county-wide. So we are working on this stuff.
Very good. And I would say even the one site would be something where we would look to maybe not moving that every week, but frequently moving it around and getting with y'all and figuring out where you feel like, maybe picking 2 or 3 locations within your precinct.
Right.
And figuring out which ones might end up being the best one.
That's what I'm saying I'd like to do.
Okay, we will get with each of you as we go through that and work out the details. Okay, I'm ready to move to item number 3. Okay. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve ILAs relating to the municipal distribution of the CARES Act with the following cities. Cities of Pelican Bay, Saginaw, and Sampson Park, and authorize the county auditor to release funds after the full execution of the agreement.
Move approval.
Second.
Way to go, JD. We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
By the way, with the passage of that, we have distributed 99.7% of all the funds, and we only have 177,000 and change to distribute yet. And then finally,
GK, before we, and maybe this is item 1 in Vinny's section. Are we going to talk some more about the contact tracing?
Yes.
Okay.
And so now we could move to item number 4. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court receive and file the single audit report for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2019.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Tidwell.
We have 3 items for the court to consider. The first is we're asking the court to approve the release of the $19,001,000 as collateral as outlined in your court communique.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Next, we're asking the court to receive and file the Tarrant County financial statements for the period ended May 2020.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And finally, I'm asking the court to receive and file the auditor's report related to the review of the financial systems and controls for Constable Precinct 1, and the response is attached.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do you feel like things are being, I see here, I know that he has agreed and has implemented some of the changes. Do you feel like you're on a course to resolve some of the findings and weaknesses that you've noted?
Yes, we started off with, I'd say some lack of communication and understanding, but before we finished, I feel that we were both very on the same page in regards to the seriousness of whatever needed to be done and why it needed to be done. The constables are like a lot of the areas, though they do still have some real needs for enhanced systems and some things which we can't fix right away, but we will continue to work with Constable 1 and try to assist them to help improve their processes as best they can.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Glenn?
Move to receive and file personnel agenda.
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second to receive and file the personnel agenda. She's here now. Please vote. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion now passes unanimously.
Good morning. That was 20 steps here and 20 steps back.
Yeah, but you got to kind of do it peppy. No peppy? Mr. Tanasia, Dr. Tanasia.
Thank you for having me back.
Do we have a choice?
the opportunity.
Do we have a choice?
Can we take a vote on that?
No. I like my job. All right.
And on that note,
Yes, sir.
we appreciate all the hard work that all your folks are doing. I know we don't say that enough. We get an opportunity, we just don't say it enough. And we do appreciate everything that everybody's doing and all the long hours and hard work that they're putting into it. And
I appreciate it, and I'll
convey that
pass the
to
message along to the team. They really need that because they're really, really struggling. So thank you for that, and I'll pass that along. So the first item we're requesting your consideration on this morning is to approve additional resources for Tarrant County Public Health in response to COVID-19. As you may recall, we came in with phase one, and that was an ask for about 60 or so contractual staff and a bunch of different supplies and all those type of things. And that was when we were declining, and the numbers didn't look like this at all. And over the last 6 weeks, we have seen huge increases in case numbers. The last week that ended, we were at about 3,700 cases added in just that 1 week. We're starting to fall behind on a lot of contact tracing and even case investigations. So with this request, we're requesting the authorization to hire up to 270 additional contractual employees. They will not all be onboarded in one go. We'll be working with GK's office on trying to work out all the other logistics on, where to put them, how to get all the technology supplies and all those type of things. But it will prevent us from keep coming back every time we up the number. It will give us an authorization for up to 270 additional folks to help out with this effort.
Vinny, how did you come to that figure, that 270?
So there's a couple of different things. Based on analysis of our data, we have a formula and some projections on where we might be if the trend continues on. And for the last 3 weeks, we're actually right on the money on the number of cases that we thought we were going to see if nothing changes. And then also there's been a couple of different national level formulas. There's one from NACCHO that talks about 15 per 100,000 employees needed. They use the term contract tracers. I mean, that's kind of the commonly used term. But 15 per 100,000, that would put us at about 300 ballpark. And there's another formula that I've seen some other states float around, and that actually doubles that number. So for Tarrant County, that would put anywhere between 300 to 600 people would be appropriate, given the load that we're seeing.
So would this be supplementing or supplanting the contact tracing support that was supposed to come from the state?
This is totally separate. It's supplementing that. So the effort from the state was geared towards using Texas Health Trace, and they were supposed to hire up to 4,000 contact tracers, right? And that's why I say the buzzword is contact tracing. Sure. What ends up happening is there are people that do case investigations, and they actually do the contact tracing part. Then you turn it over to an entity that does all the calling and reminding of these contacts and monitoring them. We're actually trying to do a whole, so the effort is on case investigations here. And of course these folks will do contact tracing and calling of people. But then the actual contact tracing part, we're trying to work on a technology solution, an automated call and a text reminder, talk to them the first time, and then everything else is handled electronically. And if something changes, then we put them into a case and then start working with them as a case. So there's a lot at play beyond the scope of discussion here. I mean, it'll take all day to explain all the nuances that go into it.
Are you hiring from a job description?
Yes, sir.
You have a job description?
Yes, sir. So we have a variety of those.
Could you provide me with?
Yes, sir, we will. We have a variety of those. Generally, what we're hiring are equivalent to our epidemiology specialists and public health nurses. So we're hiring a mix of both because public health nurses, two things are happening. One, there were some layoffs and furloughs from healthcare setting during COVID, so they're available. Generally, they're hard to find. And then secondly, we found that they're, diverse skill set, right? They can be trained in epidemiology, they can be trained in testing, they can be trained in giving a COVID vaccination when it comes around. We're going to try to use some of those folks in helping us with the back to school shot rush. So there's a diverse effort when you bring nurses on board. And we did put the term here, contact tracers, but they're at the same classification as our epidemiology specialists, because in reality, we're going to try to hire those type of folks and just split them up into different teams.
So basically, you're looking for nurses.
Nurses and epidemiology specialists. That's the main. There's admin support in there. I mean, full gamut of folks.
Then you talked to Mike back there about where he's going to find that 50,000 to maybe the 100,000 square foot building to put 270 people in?
So, again,
let me help
yes,
you.
sir.
So as you see on your court communication, that what we're asking for is up to 280, is that the number?
270, yes, sir.
270. But then it says, subject to the initial approval of the county administrator. There are probably 3 or 4 different things that need to all come into alignment before we hire anyone. Space is one. Connectivity is another, which we ran into that became a real problem. Equipment and telephonic issues. And so that requires a coordination between all the offices. And that's why we ask that it has to be upon approval of the administrator, because we want all of these, everything needs to be in place for these people to do their job. And so that's what we're trying to accomplish. So yeah, we're actually looking for space right now.
I guess you're going to lease something? Or?
Yes. It'll be lease space. And we've already seen at least one, possibly 2 sites that may work, and which have been fully furnished, and with chairs and cubicles and everything like this. It's kind of ready to move in. We have other things we need to check. I know that Vinny and Helen have developed a strategy on using some of our existing facilities now, because remember, we hired 50 people, we funded 50, and they're getting some more from Workforce
Solutions.
And so we're coordinating that with some space that we have out in Mercantile. So this is it's a complex issue to address. That's why not only we're asking for the authority of 270, but they won't be hired until we have everything in place so that they can go to work.
When did we hire the 50?
Remember the 4, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We brought to you a approval request back in May, I think May 19th. And over the last month or so, they've been fully onboarded. We're close to about 60 of those. And part of that discussion at that time, we were under the impression that we were going to get about 122 from Workforce Solutions. But the number got whittled down to about 50. We haven't yet seen one come on board, but we're doing video interviews for people that they're finding. They have their own requirements, so it's taken a little bit on who they can actually help hire.
Well, and that leads me to my question is our goal obviously is to hire the expertise, but it would be good if we were able to hire folks within our own county and area,
Yes.
Getting
You mean
folks
you
back
don't
to
want them to be
work.
from India?
Well, wherever the expertise is, but it would be nice for people who perhaps have been laid off here that they could find a job.
Yes, so absolutely right. And that's why we're not trying to go with a call center type of agreement that, was discussed.
And I say that on one hand, because the state did spend about $295 million, and most of the employees are calling from India. And I don't necessarily think that's a way to work it. But at the same time, I have always been screaming about the pending numbers. And we hired 50 people, and if it was around May, we were at 445 pending at that time. And I've never seen the number go down. So I'm not convinced that we know how to manage the people we hire to do that. And I know that we sent a package down either earlier, I think it was late part of last week, that was somebody who wanted to do contact tracing for us. But we're talking about hiring 200 and something plus people. We're talking about having to equip them with computers, find them rental space, find them desks, and we haven't been able to accomplish anything with I don't see a whole lot of success with the 50 that we've hired thus far.
So let me explain on that. So a lot of those 50 were students from UNT that were volunteering with us at that point, and they got hired into permanent jobs as they graduated, or these jobs as they graduated. So it was kind of a shift, right? I mean, we lost volunteers, but we hired them as staffers through the temporary staffing firm. And so, and then a variety of other things happened. I mean, in May, our numbers were low. I mean, we were at, I don't know, less than 500 a week. Now we're at 3,700 a week. So that volume, when you just have moved people from here to here, from a volunteer role into a staffing role, so the delta hasn't really changed on terms of number of staff that we have. Now, we've added a few, I mean, but the volume of cases has gone up. I mean, you've seen my briefings. I mean, they went up 45% on average for the last 6 weeks. At some point in May, we were declining very well, and we were looking like we were going back to when things started in March, and then suddenly it turned around Memorial Day, and we've gone exponentially higher. And we don't have that kind of staffing available to, get the numbers down like you asked very rightfully. I mean,
I'd rather us go with a piecemeal type of an approach on that, because when's the last time that any of us answered a robocall and continued to answer questions off something we got off a tape?
So it's not going to be a robocall from the get-go. The first initial contact will be made by real people, and then we'll turn it into for contacts only. We will turn into it with their agreement that you're going to sign up with a text message or a call-based service instead of us calling to check on you. Are you still doing okay? Are you still following instructions? You're going to answer a few questions. And that's the plan. I mean, it's not yet implemented, but we're having constant communications with this company called Sarah Alert. It's developed by American Public Health Labs and NACHO with a technology company called MITRE. No cost to local or state public health department. So we're exploring that option. Again, human resources is hard to find, comes with a lot of other challenges that you heard about space, technology, all kinds of issues. The money that we usually are talking about is short term, so we're trying to find other ways, but this effort is to get through the caseload. I mean, this is what we're asking the support for, is to get to the caseload that we're seeing. And if this volume continues, I mean, those numbers are going to continue to grow because there's only so many hours in the day. And getting into the nuances of things, there are efforts I've heard from staff. I mean, I've told them work from 8 to 8 or 7 to 9. And they said, Vinny, we can't make a call before 9 because people yell at us, and we can't make a call after 6 because people yell at us. They slam the phone, and they said, don't call me back because they don't want to be disturbed. And then if there's people that are sick, then sometimes you have to just work with them on when they're ready to talk, because if they're sick, they're sick. So there's a lot of things that go into all of this, and it does need some help like this and some technology help that we're trying to get.
Have we not gotten a contact tracer agreement from UNT Health Science Center? What's the status of that?
We don't have an agreement with them for contact
Well, I know we
tracing.
don't have an agreement now, but I thought they had submitted a
We're working we've asked Dr. Williams to propose a program, and I texted with him yesterday. We were going to get together to help finalize that, and we couldn't talk on the phone, so we're going to be talking the next day or two. They still have 60 students that are helping us on this. We're also using the district attorney's office yet to begin those calls.
How many are we giving? So we're giving them, the district attorney's office is starting off all of those processes.
Not all, but they're getting their, daily volume has increased. I mean, when we were in the low in May, they were getting like 5-10 a day. Now I've seen as recently as 150 a day sometimes is being sent over to the DA's office. For people that we can't find in the first go around, we send them over.
So I know that Kristen is looking at a lot of different options and things available with UNT Health Science Center. Some of those are internship type things. Some of them are maybe the contact tracing. I'm just going to say.
So here's the deal with UNT. So we're still working on 2 different programs for them. Okay, so what has to happen, those programs are multi-year programs. And so in order to qualify for COVID, what we're trying to do is try to break down what those expenditures would be through December 30th of this year. And we're progressing through that. I mean, just because someone sends us a contract doesn't mean we have to negotiate. So we have the revenue there to pay for the contract.
Well,
so
I understand
we're
we
working
have
on
to
that,
negotiate,
Judge.
but how long does it take us to? I mean, I'll go back and check on that. But what I'm saying is, we had another contact tracing. And I'm just sorry. I haven't seen us get a lot of results out of, or at least I guess what I want to know is completion. And I'd rather pay somebody to complete one and know that we only pay them if they complete it than to pay for a bunch of folks knowing that we're going to have to go out and rent space, that we're going to have to get computers for them, that we're going to have to get all that other stuff, as opposed to getting a vendor in here who we pay as they perform. So
again, just to clarify, I know you were kind of talking about when we had 60 students on board, we had pending cases and things like that. But I'm just trying to clarify for you that a lot of those 60 students either graduated and left, or they graduated and came into the roles that we were hiring in the first phase. And then we have a handful left, probably a dozen or so, that are helping as volunteers. So that number declined on the volunteer side and increased on the staffing side. So it was kind of a wash for us. I mean, we got a few people extra by hiring these 50 or 60 folks, but that was designed for that volume that was really, really low in a decline. And now the volume just kicked up over the last 6 weeks, and it takes a while to even see what's happening, plan, forecast, bring it to Commissioner's Court. I mean, if we got 270 today, it will still take us a while to catch up on where we are. And as you can see, we're trying to get the authorization from y'all to get approval to hire these people. And if nothing changes on the trend, by the time we actually get 270 on board, I might have to come back and say, okay, we need more. I mean, that's just how this is going at this point.
But the agreement that we're working on with UNT, it has nothing to do with the 2 grants applications that they submitted with the NGO program. And when I talked to Dr. Williams, I said, we are engaging more contact tracing individuals in that process. And I said, we're also looking for people that have experience as relates to, it's skilled nursing and epidemiology techs.
So where are we going to find nursing folks? I mean, right now, from what I'm hearing.
So let me tell you where we are on this deal. So Dr. Williams said that he was going to work on a contract to see what they could provide. And we heard back, and that was 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. We heard back yesterday that he wants to talk, and he and I are going to have that conversation because he has a plan for us. And so we're working through all of this stuff. And so it's not as if we can put a contract together in 1 week and have all these individuals ready to go. We're trying to work with our partners to make sure we have a good relationship with UNT, that if they have a good program, we're going to be bringing that back to court also. Here's the deal. That's why we said in here, and it might not have been clear, but we said in here that, that the hiring of these, and we want to have the authority to hire up to a certain amount. But it's subject to our office doing the final approval, because if we find a better solution than this to go ahead and increase our contact tracing, then that's what we're going to do. All we're asking for is some flexibility on this.
Well, so if I'm hearing Benny and UGK, is regardless of what UNT brings forward, it's still not going to meet the need. And the previous need was based off of, the previous staffing solution was based off of what we needed at that time, and obviously that's changed.
Yes.
Okay. So with that, I'd like to move that we move approval for the 270 temp contract staff members for public health and contact tracing efforts.
Second.
Okay, I'm not going to be voting for this because, again, I think that we would be better served by going out to somebody who is providing that as a service, and therefore we don't have to worry about renting space, making sure we've got phones there, making sure we've got computers there. And again, I just don't feel like we have gotten, whether it's not having the ability to get them all in one place and manage them or whatever. I just don't see the results that we've gotten out of the 60 or 50. And I hate to see us saying, okay, now we're going to bring on 270 and we're going to pay them, but we're not going to pay them based upon results. We're just going to pay them. And I've just got some real issues with that at this point in time. Any other discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Now moving on to the second item, we're requesting your approval for attestation and acceptance of COVID-19 Corona Relief Aid. It's the stimulus payment. Last time around, we brought a check of $1,200. I think this time around it's $21,000. And that's just a stimulus payment to medical providers. It's a part of the public health clinical services.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3, we're requesting consideration for approval of an agreement with Santander Consumer USA to serve as a closed point of dispensing in the event of a public health emergency.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Exactly what will these folks be doing?
So the closed points of dispensing are really just location agreements that, you know, if a situation was to occur, like let's say COVID as an example, if vaccine comes out, that their staff and employees don't have to come out to a public location. We'll work with them to set up a closed point of dispensing so they can stay at work and get all of their, you know, stuff done there.
Great, great. Any other questions or discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And then final item for consideration is approval of an addendum to the Essence software license between Tarrant County and Johns Hopkins. This is a no-money agreement. Last time we brought out a extension of their agreement for 5 years, and this is just an addendum to that.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion, Commissioner Johnson?
Yes. Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Vinny, I'm more than, I want to go forward and I want to do something on the contact tracing. I just don't feel that I've got enough details of where we're going and what we're planning, and I've got to have more confidence in our ability to manage and make that happen. And I haven't, you know, I've been voicing concerns about the pending numbers and those things from the get-go, and I just don't think, I'm not satisfied with the plan that I've seen from the county at this point in time to give me any assurance to go forward with that.
We'll try to bring you any details that might change your mind otherwise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Annie.
Mr. Beecham.
We have 6 items for consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid order recognition for RFP 2021-13. It's an RFP for a market benefit comparison study for HR. Recognition be toward the Gallagher Benefit Services, the amount of $39,000. If approved, we're also seeking contract approval from the court.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I'm not, and I've spoken a little bit with HR. I'm just not sure why I feel like we need to go forward with a benefit comparison and study at this point in time. I see Robin coming forward, so maybe she can convince me otherwise. But in this point in time, in where we are, I don't quite understand why we feel like we need to do this.
Certainly, we'll follow whatever your lead is. I was just going to answer questions and just mention that we have been doing these about every 6-7 years. The last one we did was 7 years ago. We do have typically our annual compensation studies that tell us where we fall within the market. And as you know, we do have a set goal with our compensation market, and so we periodically like to see where we fall in the market regarding benefits to know if we can continue to attract and retain the kind of talent that we want. And so this was requested in the budget, and we've just finished the RFP process to select a vendor, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
And I appreciate it, and I know in the past I am a big proponent of looking at that. I just feel like that this year, with everything else that's going on, that 40,000 is just something I'd rather hold on to right now than to do something that looks at benefits, and so that's kind of where I'm at.
So, Robin, I do have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
So with this study, would they be incorporating COVID in their findings, right? So is this going to help us in making decisions moving forward? I know that there's still a lot to be learned about the long-term effects of COVID and things like that, but if it's going to help us in decision-making for next year's budget, or, I mean, I'm just trying to put it in context.
No, I don't think so. Typically what these studies do, they will compare our health care benefits that we have with the PEBC as well as independent benefits we might have, and compare those in the market. So are we offering similar benefits? Do we have gaps anywhere? For example, the last couple of times we had it done, they found a gap in way we did our life insurance. Well, last year we actually made a change, or I guess this year, January 1st of this year, we made a difference in the way we offer our life insurance, and so that improvement was made. Sometimes there are recommendations made that, are just informational. So they're not looking at the specifics of like a health care. They're more looking at where our benefits fall in the market so that we know if we are offering comparable benefits to other employers.
Mary Louise?
As one of the employers here, I see benefit because we have tremendous turnover in the larger organizations, and to be able to have something like this when we sit down with somebody and say, we're competitive with our retirement, we're competitive with our health care. 40,000 is a drop in the bucket, especially when you have a lot of turnover and you're trying to find and sell. It's great to come work at Tarrant County and be a clerk and get overworked and make this amount, but look what we offer over here.
And I would say, kind of as a response to that, I recognize that, and in any normal year I would say and agree with that. I just don't feel like we're in that normal year. I don't feel like we're probably experiencing the turnover that maybe we would otherwise have been experiencing had COVID-19 not been around. But that's just, again, my feeling. Any other discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Item number 2 is another bid award recommendation for RFP 2021-24, RFP for definitive paid breath alcohol testing services for CSCD. Recommendation would be to award per the terms of the contract, awarding to the primary and secondary vendors as shown in the court communique.
Move for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3 is also a bid award recommendation for bid 2020-140. This is starting a contract for pre-sort mailing services for facilities management. Our recommendation be toward on a per-enterprise basis, awarding to Pitney Bowes pre-sort services.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4 is also a bid award recommendation for bid 2021-43, issuing a contract for Secure Access Control System maintenance, repair, and equipment purchases if necessary. Again, for facilities management, recommendation would be to award a per unit price basis, hourly labor rate, discount from price list, awarding to the primary and secondary vendors as shown in the court communique.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 5 is a housekeeping item in regards to bid 2020-065, which was for the 350 West Belknap parking garage renovation for elevator replacement project. This was initially approved in Commissioner Court on April 7, 2020, under Court Order 1324540. There was an error made in the documents that we prepared. The contract and the bid documents listed the total project as $148,209, which was the previous award recommendation. There was an error of $1,000. An incorrect bond amount was entered into the contract. So we are suggesting that we rescind the previous court order 132-540, reaward the project and acceptance of the payment and performance bonds in the amount of $149,209, which is the correct amount.
Okay, so it's still going to the same vendor, just cleaning up the amount of
Yes.
okay, gotcha. Move for approval.
Second, this doesn't constitute a rebid or
No, sir,
something
absolutely not.
else?
Just to change the bond amount, that's all. Difference of $1,000. We brought to you an incorrect amount, asking for that to be approved.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
This just clarifies that Jack did make a mistake.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
You're exactly right. Motion passes and note unanimously.
I'm glad I'm the only one in the room, but
Please note that Jack has turned Arkansas red.
Okay, our last item is an item in regards to bid 2021-49. This is an annual contract for traffic and crowd control equipment. We received 2 proposals. We are recommending rejection of both of them. There were several vacancies in the bid document. We really don't have enough to award, so we'd like to try it again.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson? He said yes. Did y'all hear him say yes? Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
No comment, Jack. Mr. Skinner, come on down.
Judge, Commissioners, we have 2 items on the agenda for your consideration. Both of these items are related to TxDOT's Equal Match program that whereby the TxDOT will waive the 10% funding requirement in lieu of county funding of other off-system bridge projects. So it's a good program for us. We are requesting on the first item the Commissioners Court's approval of an advanced funding agreement with Texas Department of Transportation related to a bridge replacement project at White Settlement Road over Live Oak Creek.
Move approval.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And for our second item, we are requesting the court's approval of an advanced funding agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation related to a bridge replacement project at Stevenson Levy Road over the tributary to Village Creek.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Mr. Skinner, I'd like to see if you could arrange for our district director to come and visit with us probably next Tuesday if possible.
Next Tuesday, I'll get in touch with them.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Brooks.
I have an interlocal agreement with the city of Fort Worth regarding the reconstruction of Everman Parkway. It's item 8I, 1A and B. I move approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Do we have any appointments? There being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second. We have a motion is second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Do we have any insurance or bonds that we need to worry about? I know I've got that highlighted on my sheet, but I don't think we have any, do we?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Before we break into, before we recess to closed session, Commissioner Allen, I think you have an announcement you want to make.
I do. I have first a reminder that today is election day for the primary runoff election. We know that there are races on each partisan ticket, and then of course City of Fort Worth has their CCPD election. Polls will be open until 7 p.m. So far, we've heard really positive feedback, or at least I have, from folks in my area that their experience has been good. So hopefully we'll see that to be true through the end of election day. And then I wanted to be sure to share with you all somewhat of a personal update. I'm just going to read my statement. Given the challenges facing our community, including the COVID-19 pandemic and a global social justice movement, there's no place that I would rather be than advocating for our community. However, and under the advisement of a team of medical experts, on Monday, July 27, 2020, I will be having major abdominal non-elective surgery for my immediate and long-term health. Some hospitalization will be required, followed by weeks of recovery at home. After the first few weeks following my surgery, my goal will be to return to court virtually by mid-August, and then again in person once I'm cleared by my medical team to do so. During this time, I commit that I will regularly stay in touch with my colleagues as well as county staff and our Precinct 2 team, which, by the way, they have been amazing, to ensure our work continues and our constituents are getting their needs met. I remain grateful for the opportunity to serve. I appreciate your understanding, and I honestly cannot wait to get back to the bench and to giving all that I can in serving as your commissioner. Thank you.
We all wish you the best, and please don't hesitate to call on any of us as you go through this, and please let us, you'll find even more about the Tarrant County family. I can guarantee you over the next few weeks.
Thank you.
And in addition to our assistance, we will be covering you and your family with our prayers.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. I appreciate that. Thank you.
With that, I will recess our open meeting to proceed to close to discuss items exempted under Section 551.
Two items.
Having returned from our closed session, we'll now address the following items.
If we can go back to item number 5A, which is the proclamation on the food bank. The briefing on that we would entertain a motion to receive and file.
I move to receive and file the proclamation for the food bank.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 4 with Commissioner Johnson not present.
Also under the County Administrator section, item 8A2, talking with the County Auditor just a little while ago. When it comes to the NGOs, I don't believe that we had as part of our motions when we approved those documents last week, or those two, that we authorized the county auditor to issue the payments once the agreements have been made prior to coming back to Commissioners Court.
We have a motion to second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 4-0 with Commissioner Johnson again not present at this time.
That's all we have at this time.
There being no further business, we're adjourned.